Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the prelim fights for UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Aldana. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the prelim. So in our first fight, we have in the lightweight division, Justin Ayari versus Luigi Vendramini. So in this fight, Ayari will have a lot of advantages as far as his physical advantages or tail of the tape advantages. Having a 4-inch height advantage, being 6 feet versus the 5'8" Vendramini. I'm gonna get that name right eventually. And then he'll also have a 4-inch reach advantage. So he'll have a 4-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Matter of fact, they don't have his reach listed. That's somebody else who has a 4-inch reach advantage. They don't have his reach listed, so he'll definitely have a 4-inch height advantage. Reach, I'm not sure. It might be even. It might be a little bit longer, but he'll definitely have a 4-inch height advantage, being 6 feet versus the 5'8" Vendramini. But that's really not where my concern is in this fight, or where I'm going to put too much investment or too much thought in. Because I'm definitely leaning to Vendramini in this one, or Vendramini in this one. And that's because Ayari, despite having a height, he had that height and reach in his last fight and really did much of nothing with it. He kind of came on a little bit late in that third round, or came on in that third round, but really in the first 2 rounds, he had issue with the speed of that weight class. He had issue finding his range, issue finding his timing, and really couldn't even use his reach in that one. And I'm predicting he'll have the same issue with his height and reach, and not really using his height and reach, and kind of having issues with the speed. And also looking at his stats, I think he has like a 40% or less lower takedown defense. Matter of fact, I think it sits at like 34% takedown defense. So his takedown defense is pretty poor. He's not the best grappler either. So to give him that many takedowns or have that low percentage going against a well-rounded fighter like Vendramini, who has a solid ground game as well, and it will have that height disadvantage, which will make it easier for him to change levels and get an easy, or not easy takedowns, but make him simpler to get to his hip, get to his legs, and get to takedowns, and definitely with the speed advantage. And also having a higher output. I'm going to lean to Vendramini in this one. I think he can outvalue him. Ayari, I think he can beat him to the punch, beat him to the kick, definitely use a lot of kicks, chew up his legs, chew up his body, duck under, get some takedowns. But I see a very highly competitive fight. I don't see this as an easy fight at all for Vendramini. I see this as a very close tight fight. Might even be a split decision, but really I just think Vendramini has the tools. I think he's more well-rounded. I think despite Ayari having the height and reach, I don't think he'll be able to fully utilize it. I think it actually will be utilized against him when he throws punches and get our kicks and kind of have them hanging out there a little bit. The fastest fighter will be able to duck under them and set up clinches, get takedowns, get control, or land his own kicks, land his own punches, land his own strikes. I really think he outlands him and mixes a couple couple takedowns in there, or at least attempts of takedowns, and get some control. And like I said, just edge him by really just dictating the pace of this fight, whether it be on the feet or on the ground, just dictating the pace of the fight, outworking and outlanding Ayari. So in this fight, I got Luigi Vendramini via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the bantamweight division. No, not yet. Bantamweight division, Kenney versus Alateng. So looking at this fight right here, Alateng, I think he's a little bit cleaner striker technically than Kenney. But I think Kenney overall is the faster fighter. I think he's a more well-rounded fighter. And even though like this is not a pure striking matchup, this is a full MMA match. I really think Kenney can dictate where this fight goes at any point in this fight. I don't think he's going to have too much issue taking Alateng down. I think he's going to have too much issue controlling Alateng on the ground. He definitely got to respect Alateng's grappling and respect his ground game, because Alateng is not like no one-dimensional fighter at all, by no means. So got to respect his full game, whether it be on the feet, whether it be in close, whether it be at distance. No matter where you're at in this fight, you got to respect Alateng in this fight. But I feel like Kenney will not have much issue taking Alateng down. Will not have much issue controlling him. As long as he respects him, not just go out there being sloppy. I feel like the takedown will be there and the control will be there. But I see he's a full way on the fight. I see Kenney mixing it up, scoring takedowns, getting a large portion of control, whether it be like 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, even 3 minutes of control time at a time. I started to see more like a minute. I think Alateng will be looking to scramble, get back to his feet. But Kenney, being a young fighter and like a high-paced fighter, high-intensity fighter, and like a fighter that you know is going to be out there and have a workhorse type of mentality, like always out there, always working at something, that Kenney's going to be nonstop. So even when Alateng gets back to his feet, Kenney's going to be working on strikes and then working to get him back to the ground. And that's really just being straight up, Kenney's the more well-rounded fighter, and he's just going to outwork him, mixing takedowns throughout the fight, and really just not allow Alateng to get a groove, get set, and just, like I said, fully make this fight a Kenney fight and make Alateng have to respond, not even respond, kind of had to follow his flow. And pretty much the whole time be playing catch up, whereas Kenney just going to be keep working, going from one thing to the next, and beat him to a decision. So in this fight, I got Kenney via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the strawweight division, Lookboonmee versus Frey. So Frey, I think she's like 10 years older than, maybe even more than 10 years older than Lookboonmee. I'm not even looking into it, but I know Lookboonmee is like 24 and Frey is like 35. So she's probably like 11 years. Or I don't know, but she's considerably younger. That's one thing I was sure. I'm not even looking, because it's not even that deep for me to look into it, because it's not that deep for me to have to dig that much further into that age thing, but it's definitely a big gap in age. Now, like it's fight, Frey will have a decent height advantage over her. I think a 2 to 3 inch height advantage, a little bit of a reach advantage. But really, to come down to this fight, I think it comes down to purely the striking. It's not like, I don't think Frey is the best user of her strike. I mean, her height, like she's not no John Jones or nobody that's real long and that is so amazing with the height. So, it could be a factor, and I think she is pretty decent with her use of height, and she's not like a sloppy striker at all. She's very clean, very technical. You saw her last fight, though it was a losing effort, she was really in control of that fight up until she got taken down. And even I think when she got taken down, I think earlier on in the fight, or attempted to get taken down, and early on in the fight, she was able to get back to her feet and continue to like this dictate the pace of the fight. But as soon as she got taken down in that third round, and then it all changed when we know how that fight went. Got submitted in that third round after I think winning the first 2 rounds pretty clearly and pretty convincingly on all judges' scorecards. But this is in May. You get finished, and whoever wins is the better fighter on the day. And she was not the better fighter, but it is what it is. And I also predicted that chick to beat her, and I thought it would be like more dominant, but nonetheless, chick I predicted got to win. But back to the present day and looking at this card. So how I see this fight right here, I think Frey is a longer fight. I think she can use that range well. But I think overall, Lookboonmee is the better striker, in my opinion. I think she's much sharper, better reflexes, better eye for what's going on in the cage and going on in the ring. A decorated Muay Thai fighter. I think really where she can dominate in this fight is in the clinch. I think she could dominate in the clinch, landing elbows, pummeling, knees to the body. And I think she could take Frey down and trip her and get control on top. I think on the bottom, Frey is pretty, she could be talented and skilled and all that stuff. A lot of fighters be skilled and talented, be having decent belts, but on their back, they be like dead fishes. And Frey is like a dead fish on her back. So I feel like Lookboonmee get some trips on her from the clinch, maybe near the body, and trip her once she like sets some knee and fakes the knee and trip her and get on the ground, like get some Muay Thai tosses and like get some control from that. Like I said, outstrike her, bully her a little bit in the clinch, like trip her to the ground and win some control time off of those trips. And really just try to make the fight smaller a little bit. And like I said, it's kind of like beat her from that Muay Thai clinch position, is dominating that position. And from that position, get like takedowns. And from takedowns, get control time. Now let's really see that as her path to victory. So in this fight, I got Lookboonmee via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the middleweight division. This really should be like a welterweight fight. I don't know why these guys are fighting in the middleweight, but they're fighting at middleweight. I guess they feel like it would be good, but I feel like both men should drop down to welterweight. But it's at middleweight, so it is what it is. Jourdain Williams versus Nassourdine Imavov. So look at this fight right here. When I look at Jourdain Williams, he still looks pretty raw to me on the feet. I seen it like. So in Jourdain Williams' last fight, like on the Contender Series, which got him into the UFC, so his very last fight, even though he won the fight, it looked like his opponent was the better fighter in that fight. He got walked into several right hands, like 3 or 4 right hands, which is not good, especially you go against a higher caliber striker in this weight class or a better fighter. He kind of going against a BJJ guy that kind of worked on his striking. Imagine a pure striker or a higher level striker, and you keep walking into the same stuff. You're going to probably get put out from the very first time you get walked into a right hand. So I'm just saying, like, not really, he looked kind of stiff, looked kind of uncomfortable. I think he originally is a wrestler. And we haven't really even seen his wrestling that much in the fights. Like, he might go for one takedown, might show some decent technique. But when I want to see success from a wrestler in MMA, like long term, it got to be a wrestler that can wrestle and chain wrestle and wrestle from round 1 to round 3. And it's really, if they need to, they can always go back to their wrestling. They can win a fight fully off their wrestling, not having to strike having to strike for long periods of time. Just go on there, maybe throw on hand and duck, like scoop you up and take you down and be able to control you. You get back up, peel you back off the cage and take you back down and like nonstop. And I have not seen that from Williams. So, and then we haven't really even seen him fight the best competition yet. So I'm not really sold on his wrestling just yet. So I'm not going to factor too much. And as far as like experience wise, it looks like Williams has more experience fighting, but Nassourdine Imavov looks more like the composed and polished fighter to me. And he'll have a 2 to 3 inch reach height advantage. I like his footwork better. And really the only reason his last opponent won him because his last opponent, he had a better striking than Williams, but his striking, defense, and footwork needed work because he got cornered against the cage, got caught, didn't know how to defend and couldn't move his head. It was square as a mug against the cage and had nowhere to move. Like he didn't know, like he was so squared against the cage, got tagged, couldn't move his big head, and was just up there like a punching bag when he got cornered. So that just showed lack of footwork, lack of head movement, lack of defense from his last opponent. And he was losing that fight outside of that. Now I look at Nasruddin Imavov. I see smooth footwork. I'm not saying he like the prettiest footwork or most amazing footwork, but definitely better than Williams. Definitely better than his last opponent, Williams' last opponent. One issue with Imavov is they kind of keep his hand down, and that will leave him susceptible to a right hand, especially if somebody really steps in with it. But other than that, I like Imavov is the more like he looks much more composed on the feet, looks much cleaner on the feet. Coming off a win over Minner, a former UFC fighter who had a lot of talent, a lot of potential. A bigger fighter as well. Like they're both 6'3". I think Wood like 6 feet 6'1". So bigger, longer fighters. That's like the way he found range, found distance, and the way he fired and understood where he was at in position. So it was a clean, highly technical fight in his last fight, but he was just a sharper one in that fight. It wasn't a fight where he just went out there and looked sloppy. He went for a clean technical fight out there and showed a full way around the skill set and was able to pull out a victory over. Not just like a guy that just got kicked from the UFC just from being bad, because that guy only lost to Colby Covington in the UFC, I believe. So was undefeated, big, and had a lot of prospect around him. Then Colby Covington destroyed him. Then he fought one fight, and then he left the UFC, I guess, because they weren't giving him a big contract. I don't know why, but yeah. And Imavov beat him. I think stopped him in the first round. But enough backstory. To get to the point, I think Imavov is just a more composed fighter, better footwork, better striking, more fluid, and more comfortable there. And even if Williams does implement a wrestling strategy, Imavov has shown the ability to scramble and get back to his feet. And I don't think Williams has shown me the ability to chain wrestle and keep wrestling and wrestle for long periods of time. So even if he does get taken down, I think Imavov will be able to get back to his feet. I think Imavov will be able to grapple with Williams. I want to see him out wrestling Williams, but I feel like he can neutralize Williams' grappling and keep it as a striking matchup. And in the striking matchup, Imavov is the better striker. But I see this very interesting fight, maybe even a fire fight. But I think Imavov eventually catches Williams with his hands down. He has been caught in the past with his hands down with a hook, drops him and finishes him in the second round. So in this fight, I got Nasruddin Imavov via second round TKO. Now to our next fight we have in the 145 division, the featherweight division, Joshua Culibao versus Charles Jourdain. And Culibao is dropping down from 155. Well, from 155 where he just fought a guy who was in Jalen Turner who was 6'3" versus his 6 feet tall. Now he's 5'10". He's not 6 feet tall. He's 5'10". So he was on a significant height and reach disadvantage. Now he's kind of dropping down to his truer weight class, and he's going against Charles Jourdain, who he'll actually have a 2-inch height advantage over. Jourdain is 5'8", and Culibao is 5'10", and Jourdain only had like a 69-inch reach. And Culibao has a 73-inch reach. So he'll have a 4-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height advantage. Or a 2-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. So he'll, unlike in the last fight where he was on a significant height and reach disadvantage in his last fight, he'll actually have a significant or a decent, it was a significant height and reach disadvantage in his last fight, but it'll be a decent height and reach advantage. So he was on disadvantage in his last fight, and he'll have a decent enough reach advantage and height advantage in this one. I kind of said the same thing a lot, but I was trying to get the words out, but you get where I'm going with this one. So went from a disadvantage to an advantage. But all that being said, I just think Charles Jourdain is the better fighter in this one. I think he's faster, much more creative, much more well-rounded. I just really think Culibao is still going to be on this like the fight IQ, the wrong side of the fight IQ equation, the wrong side of the diversity equation, the wrong side of the volume, the wrong side of the work rate, the wrong side of the experience. So it's going to be like, I just really think Jourdain's going to be the chew his legs up, chew his body up, be creative, catch him with flying knees, and just like really just outpace him and bring a pace that he has not seen before. And I don't think Culibao is going to be able to address it. But I think it still turns into a fun fight. It's just that Jourdain is going to be leading this race from start to finish. Like a competitive, fun fight, but Jourdain just clearly leading from start to finish. So in this fight, I got Charles Jourdain via decision. Now to our next fight we have in our co-prelim headliner in the welterweight division, Carlos Condit versus Court McGee. So looking at this one right here. Carlos Condit is like on a 4 or 5 fight losing streak. And this is like over the past, 5 years or more, or around 5 years, or roughly 5 years. So he's been losing for a long period of time. And he also hasn't fought in 2 years. His last loss, I believe, was to Oliveira. No, it wasn't Oliveira. Let me check. I'll be right. So his last loss was to Michael Chiesa. Yeah, that was an ugly fight. That was just a very terrible performance. That's like, you should retire after that loss. He let Chiesa kind of just manhandle him around. And then he got him with like a one-arm submission. Like he just literally just grabbed his arm with one arm and pulled it behind his back until he tapped out. That was a very bad loss. You know, Chiesa say he gets tapped. A lot of people with that in training. That's not a loss of a former champion or former interim champion. A guy people feel so highly about, even myself feel highly about, should be losing. That's no way he should be losing. And the Chiesa should have been a winnable fight for him. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and he lost that fight. Now going against Court McGee, I don't think Court McGee would lose to Chiesa like that. Court McGee probably would go to decision with Chiesa, might even drop him in that fight. Couldn't even possibly beat Chiesa. But I feel like Court McGee definitely would not get done that way by Chiesa. But outside of that, Condit has lost a lot of fights over the past couple of years. But when you look at the people he lost to, really a lot of them are doing well in the division. Charles Oliveira, you know, he has his moment. He kind of had some skidding moments in the past couple of years, but he kind of returned back to form again. So Oliveira is still relevant within the weight class. Is he relevant at the top end? Definitely not. But from the middle to the lower end of the, more so the middle. From the middle kind of end of the division, Charles Oliveira is still very relevant. So that's not necessarily the worst loss. Neil Magny is relevant at the top end of the weight class. Maybe not top 5 yet, but like definitely the top 10 picture. Neil Magny is very much in that picture, or at least around that picture, and can get fights with anybody in that weight class. I mean, in this weight class around the top 10 or top 15. So a much more relevant name in Neil Magny. I think what's it called? And some other losses, but he had plenty of losses. I can't even name them all right now or remember them all right now. But when you like literally all the names, even Chiesa is very much relevant in the top 10 of the weight class as well. It's just the way he lost to Chiesa was far from advisable, far from impressive, far from forgivable, like far from like any type of positive to be taken from that fight outside of where he's ranked. Outside of Chiesa being a relevant fighter in the top 10 picture, that loss was beyond horrendous. So yeah, looking at Carlos Condit versus Court McGee, this fight was a couple years ago. This would be like Carlos Condit all the way, but really, money should be on Court McGee in this one. But I'm gonna trust Carlos Condit just one more time. I feel like this is a fight where Carlos Condit can win. I don't feel like Court McGee has evolved all that much, but Condit has not evolved all that much himself. He definitely has regressed. And I think Court McGee, even when Carlos Condit was at his best, he did have very questionable takedown defense. I think Court McGee, even though he's not the best wrestler, he has shown the ability to take down some solid fighters, and I think he could pressure Condit and take him down. But I feel like at this point, or between these two, I feel like Carlos Condit can definitely kind of take advantage of Court McGee's style, like how he kind of shells up, kind of comes in a little bit square, and likes to fall in, which will allow Condit to be open up with his elbows, which allow Condit to throw his teeps, get his kicks off, and really kind of have a target that's right there in front of him in a way. Definitely got to worry about the power of Court McGee. Definitely got to worry about the pressure. But as far as finding McGee, it's not going to be hard to find McGee. He's going to be there to be hit. And that will allow Condit to kind of have his usual flow. And he's not really going in there with a true wrestler or a true grappler, a guy that's their style. So I can see McGee still presenting the same issues that caused Condit issues in the past. And even in his prime, you could say. But outside that, I think McGee's style more so favors Condit to be able to really start to chain his elbows together, really be creative, and take advantage of a canvas that's right there to be hit. So be the artist that he is and go out there and be creative and be destructive and take advantage of a guy that's going to be there to be hit. Court McGee still doesn't have the best head movement. Still a slower fighter. Very tough, very durable, very well-rounded, very technical, but slow, hittable, not the best head movement. And that's going to allow Condit to get off. But still, I still see it's a very close fight because I feel like Condit's going to get taken down a couple times. Condit's going to get tagged a couple times. But Condit's work rate and his diversity, picking up that volume, is going to separate him in this fight. So in this fight, I got Carlos Condit via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, Kyler Phillips versus Cameron Else. So looking at Cameron Else, I'm going to be straight up. I'm not impressed by his resume. He beat Paddy Pimblett like real early on in his career. I think when he was 1-0 or 2-0 and Paddy Pimblett was 4-0. But outside of that, his last couple fights I think he beat a guy who was like 0-4 or 0-16. He's like, given his age, he's like 8 years older than Phillips. He's in his 30s, like mid-30s almost. And hasn't really been doing much. In his last couple fights, or really his last couple years, he's been fighting to like tomato cans, basically. And I'm not impressed by that. I ain't going against Kyler Phillips, a guy who's very much trying to make something of himself and trying to make statements in the division, is trying to make statements in his career, who's fighting the best competition that could be presented to him. And he's putting on solid performances. I'm always going to lean to the guy who's not afraid to take challenges. even if the guy is good, if he's fighting like tomato cans and he's getting a UFC contract off of fighting tomato cans, I'm never really going to respect him on predictions. I'm not respecting Cameron Else. And he could very well come out there and beat a more well-rounded striker, but actually, I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying, like, that's with anyone. But I think what the fight going to come down is to the grappling. And I think Phillips is just much more, and is more in position to dictate and control the grappling with his takedowns and his top pressure and his relentless pace and his relentless transitions, just being heavy on Cameron Elson on the ground and not really allow him to get anything off or really have answer, really be able to stand back to his feet or have that space to get going in this fight. I think Phillips is going to be on him, smothering him, and just controlling him and dictating the pace of this fight, getting some ground and pound off, sinking some hooks in, take his back, ground and pound, and tap him out in that second round. So in this fight, I have Kyler Phillips via second round submission. And that concludes my fight predictions for the prelims of UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Aldana. And as always, thanks for watching.